Hey guys, I'm doing a quick sort of first impressions and mini review of the Cold Steel AK-47. This is a knife that I've seen for a while and thought about getting for myself, but it's not exactly, I don't know, it was never one that I really wanted to pull the trigger on. But I have a friend who really digs the AK-47 kind of motif, and when I asked what blade he was rocking, he was telling me he was currently carrying an 8CR13 MOV. And as you guys know, that's not a knife. That's a blade steel, and it's an okay blade steel. But I think AUS 8 is a step up, and I found this on the secondary market. You can see it's got some little kind of like scratches, or you can see the coating is kind of wearing off on certain areas. So I got it for a really good price, and why not upgrade the homie's blade, right? And also do a little quick review and sort of just get it in hand and check it out. And honestly, it's a pretty cool knife. It came, fairly dull, but even fairly dull, I had some double thick cardboard, and this thing was just gliding right through it, no problem. I've since put an edge on it, and it's good and sharp. I think that hollow grind is it really makes it glide through stuff. I did a little bit of apple processing, did my standard rotate out the top of the apple, but then just cutting right through it. Again, that hollow grind it really is very laser-like. So actually I have a lot of good things to say about it from my brief experience with it. I was thinking this might be a tricky thing, the clip over the G10. Other cold steels that I've had, like this holdout, this was impossible to get out of your pocket. I mean, with the clip on it, just forget about it. And since it's such a thin knife, I currently carry it without any kind of clip. I'm sure I could modify it slightly, but it was just impossible to get out of your pocket. This guy, the Cold Steel Voyager, is not bad out of the pocket, and that's because it has this plastic. So I was thinking, G10 like this is going to be really difficult, especially with these little milling kind of, you can see it's sort of these little grooves. I thought maybe that would make it even more difficult, and no, it absolutely doesn't. Those little grooves aid in making it so that there's a little bit of space underneath that clip. And then the other thing is that this is a waveable knife, so it's really important that you're able to clip this on your pocket and then have no trouble extracting it. So it waves out really well, honestly. So it clips in nicely, waves out nicely. Yeah, really quite happy with those functions. And then just a little bit about like blade shape, because I do have a few negative things to say about this, but we'll get to that in a second. Blade shape. This is that nice belly, which just lends itself to cutting, slicing just super well. And then it's also paired up with that perfectly flat top, that nice flat grind on top. So if you guys have seen my review on the Tiger, I'm a huge fan of that good clean sweep with a nice flat top, because it allows for a lot of cutting in this sort of rolling fashion, and then sliding or scraping with that top area. So it's almost like a little mini Tiger, which I like a lot. So let's talk about kind of the things that I think a lot of people are really not thrilled or would not be thrilled about when picking up the mini AK-47 here. One is, I would say the most obvious is this right here. When we see this as knife guys, we're excited, right? They put a choil in there, a sharpening choil. That means that you can sharpen all the way to the back. But as you can see, it's not sharpened all the way to the back. And that's because this grind is not is not far enough back, and so what you have is you have this portion in here. Let me use another knife as a pointer. You've got this portion right here, and it's unsharpenable. I mean, yeah, I guess you could get in there with a really gnarly stone and just keep on grinding, but you would have this big sweeping ugly kind of grind going on back there. But as it is, this is pretty atrocious as well, right? You got this triangle, this just chunk of unsharpened blade back there, and it just makes you wonder, like, there's a lot of knives that do that. I mean, here we go, there's another one right there. I guess it's a cold steel thing. Let's see, are all the cold steels that way? No, you know what, this one got it right. The Voyager gets it right. Now, of course, this is the partially serrated version, so I can't really speak to what it would be like in plain edge, but from the look of it, the geometry would support that fully sharpened edge. As it is, the geometry of this, or the geometry of this, you can just see that it's not tapering down quick enough to support that kind of fully sharpened edge all the way back to the sharpening choil. So that's a little bit of a miss. But that said, I will say that, well, this leads into the other side of what kind of makes it good or bad or subjective from an EDC or knife guy standpoint. The ergonomics on this, they're good, but you know, I have large glove size hands. I'm a 6 foot tall person with decent sized hands, not ridiculously huge, proportional. And in my hands, it feels a little small. Now, my friend who this is going to is a smaller dude, and so I think it's not going to. I think for his hand, it should hopefully be fine. We'll see. If not, then maybe he's excited enough about this to go buy the full size AK. I would, if I was buying one, I would opt for that full size AK-47, but at the same time, this is that below 3 inches, so it's a 2.75 inch blade. I think it's 2.75, is it? Yeah, 2.75 inch blade, which is good for California for legality purposes. So I would own one of these mini AKs for the same reason that I would own and do own this mini Voyager. In fact, I really like this mini Voyager. When you look at the ergonomics on these, you can see that there's a lot of similarities. In fact, these two are incredibly similar knives. Ergonomically, if you look up reviews on this Voyager, a lot of people say, I don't know, it feels like my hand's too cramped, I can't get all of my fingers in here, one finger ends up sitting on the back. Well, that's the exact same thing with this. You're not going to get all of your fingers, all 4 fingers, in between these 2 posts. That's just not going to happen. One finger is going to end up on the pommel, or this sort of back portion, and that's fine. It totally feels good in this. It feels great, honestly, in this kind of saber grip, but where it becomes more of a three and a half finger knife at that point, right? Or you can choke up on it, which I do with this one as well. This big wide area here, while it's a great for a guard, as for kind of thrusting type attacks or puncturing movements. It also acts as a really nice choil if you're going to be doing something that involves choking up a little bit more, and so it does give your finger a nice resting spot. And that leads me into what I was going to say about this little unsharpened portion right here. What's nice about this little unsharpened portion is that when you are in this kind of a grip orientation where you're choking up on it, you're actually, if you start to move onto that blade, it's almost like the highway strips where you feel like a da 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 da. Oh shit! Don't fall asleep, buddy. Like you're driving off the road. You're almost entering danger. Is you feel this bump, then you feel this bump, and then you're gonna get to a sharpened blade. So there's almost like a little tactile cue that like, hey, watch where you're sliding that finger, buddy, because that could get dangerous for you. So I had thought about, well, should I, since I do have the ability, I have stones that would come in here and grind this down to make it a cutting edge. I just thought, no, it's not really worth it because I can see this, the usage of this knife being in a choked up fashion like this, at which point I think it could almost be more of a problem to have that edge sharpened all the way back. So, you know what? I know that it's knife guy blasphemy to have a sharpening choil and then not to utilize it. That said, it does serve some function, albeit unintentional, when choked up like this. So, not a terrible thing. But yeah, ergonomics are good on it. The reason that I'm a little, I will accept the fact that this needs to become a 3.5 finger knife because there's really no usage for this pommel otherwise. Whereas with the AK-47, part of, I think, the positioning of the AK is that you get this exposed metal backspacer. And part of the kind of the allure or selling point of that, or one of the functionalities, is a blunt impact force device. So, you can pommel down and whatever, deliver that kind of Kubaton style, like a strike with that pommel. That's fine if you're choked up, but if you're choked up like this, I'm not sure that you really want to. Honestly, knife fighting, no one does it, so thankfully that's not a problem. But theoretically, if you were knife fighting, I think that's why you have this dramatic choil, is so that way you are not going to slide forward on the blade. But honestly, that's the idea, thinking that all of your knife fighting is poking. In my experience, and I don't have any real experience, but just from martial arts and some blade and knife fighting instruction that I've received in the past, stabbing is not the ultimate usage of a knife in fighting. There's a lot of other ways that if you know how to use a knife, you're going to be using a knife. The other thing is that if you're going to deploy a knife in a fight, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to end up bleeding as well. Like, you're going to end up cut. So having your finger up here maybe is not the craziest thing in a fight, because it's going to give you an extremely secure, locked in. I would rather fight with the thing like this, so that I could use this back portion, and so that I just have the most retention of the knife, rather than like this. The longer you have hanging out here, the easier it is to disarm. So, there's advantages and disadvantages, but my whole point is that if this is supposed to be an impact device, and you intend for me to hold it like this, well, now I can't do a whole lot of impacting, right? Because it's not hanging out the back of my fist. So, anyways, those are just minor critiques. I think for an EDC knife, for a really rugged, this is 0.12 thickness, so I think that's pretty similar to like an Emerson in thickness. Almost. I think this is 2.5, but you're talking about a relatively beefy blade, and paired up with that very steep, very tall hollow grind, this thing really cuts incredibly well. So yeah, I think the mini AK-47 is a pretty nice knife, and if you're able to find one at a decent price, I think that it's a great competitor for something like the Voyager. The Voyager typically is like, oh, well, that's the inexpensive cold steel, the 3-inch inexpensive cold steel. That said, they're no longer in production, so if you're going to look for one on eBay or one of the Blade forums or something like that, expect to pay between, $35 at the very cheapest up to more like $50 or so for one of these these old Voyagers, second generation Voyagers. For something like the AK, I think these things retail closer to, 100 or something like that. So they're supposed to be more expensive. This is G10 versus your FRN. So there's a little bit of a plus if you get the wave feature on this. That said, you can find these on the secondary market, eBay, stuff like that, for pretty much the same prices as this. You could find, a really good deal on one of these would be like $40, $35. But you definitely can find one for 45 or 50, no problem. You could probably find one even cheaper, 25 or 30 if you do blade forums or something like that. So it's a good competition in this size range. Let me put a couple of other knives that I sort of would compare it to. I would compare it to this only because it's a sub 3-inch waveable knife. That said, you can see there's a lot of differences. I mean, blade length is very similar, but look at the amount of handle on that, and look at the thickness. It's markedly thinner than something like the CQC 14 here. It's quite a bit thinner than the Voyager as well. So if thickness is a question, I think that the Mini AK is actually better than the Voyager. So it's interesting. I've been a huge proponent of these Mini Voyagers, or the medium Voyager, but I really do think the Mini AK kind of gives it a run for its money, and comes in with more features at a very similar price point. Compared to something like the CQC 14, it's definitely not competing in my pocket. I put this much taller grind on this, which is just, honestly, you take one of the beast stones for your KME, one of these heavier, like 50 grit, and then just sit there for a couple of hours, and what you get is an incredibly slicey. See, I haven't stropped this, I haven't done anything to this in quite a while, so let's see what we're doing. Yeah, it could use a little stropping, but it's definitely, it's sharp. I cut myself. It bit me the other day. Not very many knives do, and this one did. All right, well, it's not that sharp right now, but this definitely helps out with the thicker blade, with that chisel grind. And once I do this is my go-to sort of back pocket knife, because it's just so compliant. And then, I love having a full-size handle, This is why I don't like this knife, is because I feel I need to squeeze real hard to feel locked in here, or I need to come up here and then be in, danger zone. Same thing with this. It feels all right. It's okay. It's not bad, by the way. There's a nice little landing spot for your thumb. Same thing with choked up. You can get up here really nicely. But yeah, the feel of this is just, it sucks that you want a smaller blade to be compliant, but then you end up with this little shrimp ass handle. This thing, so nice. So damn good. So yeah, I think it's interesting because it does compare in the sense that it has a wave. If you are looking for something with a wave in this size, I don't have one here right now, but the Kershaw Emersons, they did, I think it's the CQC 11 possibly, or CQC 6? I'm not sure which one it is, but there's a 3-inch version with green G10, and I've owned a few of those, and it works. They're great. They're really good, waveable, under 3-inch back pocket knives. Or front, put it in whatever pocket you want, but waveable under 3 inches. So let's just put out a couple of other size comparisons, even though they're not as much like comparable in blade and handle and all that. This thing also 3 inches, but very different in a lot of ways, as you can see. Just the straight handle versus these more ergonomic handles. Here it is next to just a wave. a Leatherman wave, just to kind of give you some sense. I think maybe a lot of people do have these. Here's a Delica. Give you some sense of it next to a Delica. Just slightly longer than the Delica in the back here. Yeah, this is a wonderful knife as well, as you of course know. But for what it counts, this is a knife that I would take. I would feel more comfortable having this as like a back pocket compliant, do anything type knife, really. Versus this, it's just a little, the thinness of it is worrisome for heavy duty tasks. I don't do heavy duty tasks very often, but every now and then. So something like this I might see more pocket time than my Delica. Let's see, other stuff to throw out. I guess this is a common one that a lot of people have. You can put it next to your classic 58 millimeter Swiss Army knife. This is the Mechanic. So yeah, thinner than the Mechanic. Definitely thinner than one of these. Let's look at the thinness compared to a Delica. It's a little thicker than the Delica. What else? Put out one of these guys, just because it's fun. That's the Man Bug. And yeah, that's about it. I don't think, you can put out other stuff. This is another small, this is kind of the perfect compliant but badass rugged blade. This is the I think it's the 900. This is the Les George Zero Tolerance collaboration for the 900, and yeah, really cool knife. Smaller handle, but honestly more comfortable. I feel this feels way closer to this than any of these other ones, honestly. Just again, because you're not going crazy with overly sculpted, really thin little grips. You give you something to actually bite onto and hold onto, and just feels good in the hand, confidence inspiring. But you know what? If you're going for more lightweight, this is 2.9 ounces. These things are certainly above that. I think maybe your Delica comes in below that for sure. But, I mean, they're comparable. And for the amount of strength that you get, since you do have that triad lock, nice thick blade stock, sliciness of the hollow grind, it's really not a bad option. You could do a lot worse than the Mini AK-47. So, hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'll certainly try and bring you guys some more follow-up stuff on that Emerson Battle Axe. I've been enjoying that thing. Haven't done any real proper chopping with it yet, but it certainly gets a lot of time walking around the house. So yeah, I'll bring you some more on that. Been having a lot of fun with that Mako, the squid. So anyways, hope you're doing well. Take care, guys. Thanks.